CEO of Regional Development Australia, Tasmania, and he has before that worked in local government for 6 years, but he's been with regional development for 15 years. So he's working with communities to support their strategic development, economic growth, and improving social capacity. So shall I say some of that again? Craig Perkins, I'm introducing, CEO of Regional Development Australia, Tasmania. And he worked in local government for 6 years and now with regional development 15 years. And I'm going to, so you can see. So Craig and his group are working with communities to support their strategic development, economic growth, and improving social capacity. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you. We don't have any people online.
No,
None?
no online people for this room.
Just a show.
Yeah.
It's kind of good, isn't it?
Yeah, just visit.
Are we good? Excellent. So thank you, and it's great to be here today. And before I start, can I say I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where we're meeting today, the Aboriginal people of Tasmania, their leaders past, present and emerging. And also want to acknowledge the different cultures that are present here today, not just in this room, but in both rooms and this through these multicultural talks. I think it's really exciting. And take the time to participate. Okay, so we've got 45 minutes, I think, for now, haven't we? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk about Tasmania. I'm going to assume you don't know much about Tasmania, and I'm going to talk about our people, the population, the economy, and where we've the environment over the last 10 years. Can we jump? Do you want me to do that, or you do that? I can. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Yep. Cool. All right. So I'm going to assume you haven't been around Tasmania much. So Tasmania is divided, particularly for my presentation today, into 3 areas. So 3 regions: the south, the north, and the northwest. And I'll talk about our population differences in each region, our settlement differences in each region, and the industry sectors in the regions. So if you look at Tasmania, take a snapshot of Tasmania and the way our economy is. 12 months ago, we were a $30 billion economy with 500,000 people and about 40,000 local businesses. And just looking at the graph, our businesses are made up lots and lots of small businesses, predominantly in construction, agricultural sectors, which includes forestry and fishing, and finance, housing, and aged and healthcare are the biggest industry sectors. Agriculture, forestry and fishing. If anyone's got questions or not clear on something, just get them to stop me and ask the question. Importantly too, I think a productive society is an educated society, so the importance of education becomes really important. And in Tasmania, we have, compared to Australia, so this is Australia, Tasmania, we have lower percentage of our population on university studies or higher qualifications. Importantly, that's changing, and I'll show some stats that within Tasmania it's quite different as well. Yeah. So these stats here break Tasmania into the three regions that I showed before. We have Northern Tasmania, Southern Tasmania, and Northwest, which is up around Burnie and Devonport. Yeah. These are the higher qualifications down to lower qualifications on each one. And as you can see, in Southern Tasmania, there's a higher portion of people, and it's above the Tasmanian average, that have bachelor or university studies or advanced diplomas, compared to Northwest Tasmania, which has a higher portion of people with no qualifications. And this is really important because, as I said, the more educated you are, the greater capacity to engage in employment, and therefore, you know, the greater employment, the greater level of prosperity that we can endure, you know, support. The other thing I just want to show too is the age of Tasmania's population. So these two graphs show the grey bars are Australia, the red bars Tasmania. This is for 2001 and this is in 2016. This part of the graph, so these are the age brackets, the percentage of the population in each age bracket. You can't see? So, yeah. Importantly, though, I don't think you need to see necessarily the details. What this part here is the productive population. That's the workers, the 18 to 20s up to about 40-year-olds. This is the part of the economy that does all the hard work. Yeah, that's right. Well, no, you shouldn't be though. You shouldn't be though. Yeah. 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 And in the last 15 years, those hard workers become these hard workers, and so our population has become older, and our workforce has become older. So this creates opportunities. And the opportunities are twofold. One is it creates gaps in the younger age groups for younger people to fill in. So it creates employment opportunities for them. And two, the older population, and I'll show in a bit later, will require more support around age and healthcare services that an ageing population requires, because more trips to the doctors and the hospitals and other things as we all get older and need more greater health support. All this graph here shows is that within the regions of Tasmania, it's a bit, the stories are a little bit different. The further away from Hobart you get, the more a high percentage of older population live within communities. And all this graph here shows is that in the last 10 years, there's the population change in Tasmania in terms of population growth is been population growth and population growth declined, and then it increased again, mainly on the back of migration into the state as opposed to natural growth. And in northern Tasmania and northwest in particular, there were some parts in time when population declined, and that population decline is on the back of declining economic activity, particularly in the early from 2010 to probably 2014, as some businesses closed, the global financial crisis, some of the impacts following that. And in the last few years, as people have realised Tasmania is a wonderful place to be, more people have moved in, particularly in the south of the state, which is terrific, but causes its own challenges, particularly around, I guess, employment opportunities, and particularly around the cost of living and providing appropriate housing. Good. So that's the population story. I'm now going to talk about our industry sectors and where our economic value is generated from. Yeah. So these graphs here show our predominant sectors in Tasmania and Australia. The top line on each bar, and I'll go through each one. The top line is Tasmania. The second bar is Australia, and it's the percentage of that industry as a whole economy. So what we know, agricultural, forestry and fishing takes up over 10% of the Tasmanian economy, but it's only a smaller part of the national economy. manufacturing is a big part of the Tasmanian economy. Healthcare and social assistance is a big part of the Tasmanian economy. So Tasmania has always been an agricultural society. I mean, always been agricultural producers, and we've grown that in the recent years. And what we can see here is that our output has increased significantly in terms of the dollar value that it contributes to our economy. Yeah. And healthcare and social assistance has also increased significantly over the last 10 years in terms of its contribution to our economy, which will represent job opportunities. I'll explain in a minute. All right. Manufacturing declined, and that's on the back of advanced manufacturing. Sorry, global financial crisis. Things move offshore to cheaper, where it's produced cheaper. But we still have some quality manufacturing in the States. But that decline in manufacturing was in the early part of the decade. Yeah. This decline here is, you can't read it, it's public administration. So it's basically less spending from a public service point of view. So the government in the middle of the decade reduced the size of the public service, and that's the impact on the economy. Yeah. So this slide, so that was where our economy is strong. So in healthcare, in agriculture in particular, in the last one. This is about employment opportunities and where the employment sits. And you'll notice on the last slide that agriculture was a growing sector. So in the Tasmanian economy, lots of jobs in healthcare, in retail trade, in manufacturing, and to a lesser extent, agriculture. So lots of jobs. So an older population is supported by people, jobs in aged care homes, in supporting in doctors and nurses, and supporting care services. So it's right, lots of different varied ones. Importantly, too, jobs in the healthcare and social assistance. There are lots of early entry. So by doing study and courses, you can get into the healthcare sectors, either supporting in-home care or working in hospitals, or potentially in administrative roles as well, which are really important, and senior positions. Yeah. Interestingly, in the last slide, agriculture, forestry and fishing was a growth industry in terms of economic output. But the number of jobs have actually declined in that industry. And that's based on a couple of reasons. One is the forest industry in the early part of the decade declined. Also that the value in increasing has through better irrigation systems and automation. So, and the growth of the aquaculture, so the salmon farming, have produced a lot more in terms of economic value. So they've grown in economic value disproportionately to the jobs in the sectors. Yeah, but nonetheless, there are lots of job opportunities, particularly as in recent years there's been growing the agriculture sector in growing strawberries, raspberries, berries, and other seasonal produce that requires a lot of labour for harvesting. Yeah, and certainly the healthcare sector will continue to require jobs. Oh. Ahead of me. Yeah. So there's a picture of the Tasmanian economy, where it's been over the last decade. I just want to talk about the impact that COVID's had on our economy very briefly. So this slide here looks at the output of each various industry sector in over the last 12 months, and it shows that particularly accommodation, in particular, which is the tourism sector, has taken a big hit because of COVID, had a big impact. Yeah. The bottom line is arts and recreation, and a big part of that is the impact on from gambling. So I don't think that's a bad thing that it's decreased. And so that's a percentage decrease in their economic output. This shows the real dollar impact. So the tourism industry has lost close to $330 million in 12 months, which is basically the last 6 months. 330 million. Yeah. So you can see that all Tasmanian industry sectors, apart from one, have had a negative impact in terms of their economic contribution to our state over the last 12 months. Yeah. The one that has grown, yeah. So the one that has grown is healthcare and social assistance, and that's reflecting the government's response to COVID. the good news about COVID, if there's good news, is that the impact on Tasmania has comparative to the rest of Australia's economy, hasn't been as strong, hasn't been as big. So this line here shows that the percentage decrease of the Australian economy, and this shows the impact within Hobart and Tasmania generally. So a greater impact on the economy, Australia generally compared to Tasmania. And this one here shows the impact on jobs. So the loss of jobs, again, mostly COVID related, Australia, in Hobart, and Tasmania generally. Yeah. Next one. And just a quick look at where those jobs have been lost or impacted, mainly the tourism sector, where nearly 10,000 jobs were impacted. But over 2,500 new jobs in healthcare and social assistance as a response. Yeah. So that's a snapshot of Tasmania, its economy and population. So hopefully that made some sense. Yeah. Oh, next one. So to work in the education sector, aged care sector. Well, I think it's I can't answer that specifically, but what's really important is to get training and in that sector. So, and the best way to do that, I would think, is to go and talk to the likes of TAFE around what course opportunities, because they would know where the job demands are. But,
can I just add, and also come to our next forum, then that will focus in more on the jobs available and how to start networking and finding the pathway.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one, as Tasmania will continue to require people in that aged healthcare and support sector for a long time, and if you get trained properly, and there's going to be opportunities there for long-term employment. Yeah. So based on all that, and notwithstanding COVID will be obviously with us for a little bit longer yet, hopefully not too much longer, but it could be around for a while. Tasmania does present really good employment opportunities and economic opportunities long term, I believe. And they're around, there's a lot of investment in renewable energy and potentially a lot more in Tasmania over the next decade and a half. So wind farms and dams and other things, which will create jobs not just in building and running energy facilities, but also a lot of construction jobs that will be part of that. Yeah. Our agricultural sector will continue to grow because Australia and the world still want to eat, apparently. So we'll still grow food and quality food that the world and Australia, the rest of Australia will want. So there'll continue to be job demands in those areas. I've spoken about our ageing population and lots of opportunities that will continue to be there. Our tourism and hospitality, or our visitor economy, once people can start moving more freely into the state, into Tasmania, I think we'll be ready to get back to the levels that it was before COVID became upon us. That's pretty much my presentation. I'm happy for any questions and to talk more about it. I think what's really important, and I was talking to someone I know who's coming down in a few weeks' time to talk around more around employment and employment networks and connections. I think these forums are really good, and if you can continue to participate in them, I think you'll find them valuable. I'm happy for any questions. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask a
Yeah.
question. For many people coming here, something like working in aged care can often be one of the first for disability, their first areas. But there are different areas to go in. We heard this morning someone who started a small business. Can you give us some other broad scope where people can start to think?
Yeah.
In terms of, perhaps beyond some of these obvious.
Yeah. Well, I've never really looked into it in the detail. But it's so I mean, it's everything from, in an aged care sense, it's in-home care, so could be physically helping someone or making sure the house is clean and cooking and safe. So lots of different, if someone's living at home and needs support, a lot of home care, both physically and in the home environment. And in respite services, working in aged care homes and supporting in kitchens, cooking healthy foods for people becomes really important. So there's many opportunities.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
beyond that, like, you know, what maybe, for instance, agriculture at the moment,
Yeah.
they are calling for people in the harvest industries.
Yeah. 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 So. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, I can give details to you.
That's right. I think. Yeah. I'll give some stuff to other connect. We might have them, but to Jade too. That through my networks, I think that's worth sharing. Because sometimes, and which is a skill or vocation, and it just needs to be assessed locally, so you can then get a job. So your skills might match. It just needs a local assessment over the top, so they know that you are suitably qualified. The other jobs too, and we'll just talk in agriculture, particularly in the seasonal workforce, what they call seasonal workforce, which is the harvest time. So December through to March and April, lots of labour is required on farms for picking berries, grapes, lettuces and other things. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a the best way to find them is there's a website called Harvest Trail, and you can identify. It's called Harvest Trail. It's a Commonwealth government website, and there's farms that will say we want workers. So, yeah, and the lots of backpackers normally do the seasonal workforce, but they can't come at the moment. So there are a lot of opportunities for locals to work in that area at this moment.
It was in the Mercury today.
Oh, was it? Oh, there you
Yeah,
go.
so there's a 1-800-062-332 number.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm also wondering actually for some of these like tourism, we are the least multicultural state and territory in Australia. I mean, is that an interesting thought as regards our tourism in terms of who is here and how you could have more cultural tours?
Yeah. Well, yes. So Tasmania is generally less multicultural, although that's changed over recent years. And people look for that. I look for cultural experiences, be it for food experiences or other type of cultural experiences. So there's opportunities, I think, for enterprises, for people to start up enterprises and businesses, and there's support to assist people business plan and start a business, and give advice on business. That's free advice. So there might be opportunities in the tourism and hospitality sectors as well, and support to help people grow their own business. Another question? Yeah. So, yeah, what I would be doing is going to TAFE and inquiring about some of the courses on offer. Oh, do they? Yeah. Well, I think some of the next forums are going to talk about connections to employment opportunities and some of those ways you can find them. So I'd be participating in them and coming along to them so you can get some of those tips.
So 24th of October, make that note. 24th of October is the next one. Hopefully, unfortunately, other people had to go to an appointment.
Yes, all right.
That's probably
That's right.
why some of
Yeah.
our group
No,
this
that's okay.
morning. Yes, so that will give more zeroing in on work opportunities and how you start finding the pathways.
Yeah.
So today we had that example of someone starting a business and finding work that way. And then, more importantly, in a way, we've had from Craig the whole economic landscape of Tasmania. Thank you
Excellent.
so
No,
much. Yeah.
you're welcome. Hello.
And if you've got a few minutes, people might
Yes.
individually have a question. So I just thank Craig so much for his time this morning. He's had to do this twice. So thank you so much.
No, that's good. Yeah. I hope